Hey, my name is James. Welcome to this video journal. If you ever watch this, if you're someone other than myself, um, this is kind of a way for me to kind of therapeutically cleanse myself. Not really cleanse myself. That's kind of just drop my phone. Kind of get my stories out of me. Kind of record myself like a journal. I don't like writing a journal. Sometimes I do it, but it's just not as easy as just talking about it. That's not exactly true. It's hard to talk about it in front of a camera. I have to somehow imagine that you are there in front of me, but you're not. So that's so funny, the thing of cameras. I'm just basically talking to myself. And that's not really who I like to be. I like to have genuine kind of one-on-one conversations. I'm not good in groups because I can't have that deep connection with the person I'm talking to, and I kind of have to give this, to me at least, it feels like this superficial, like I have to create some kind of image of enthusiasm when I'm talking in a group. I myself just feel disconnected, and it completely tires me out. So anyway, that's over with, but this is what it is. I'm just going to talk about some thoughts, and then I'm going to share stories. So since this is the first video, I'm going to maybe go a little bit of an overview of my life, my background. My dad was born in Philadelphia, I believe. He grew up in New Jersey. That's for sure, in Williamsboro, New Jersey. And he had a brother, older brother. Long story short, he moved to Los Angeles to go to the University of Southern California, USC for short, following a long line of tradition in my family. My great-grandmother went there in the early, well, not 1920s, I believe. And I eventually went there as well. And I'm the 13th person that went there in my family because my mom's side also went there. My mom was born in Singapore, though. Singapore. Her parents are from China. Her dad died when she was very young. Lung cancer, I believe, possibly from smoking. Not entirely sure if it was lung cancer. Her mom, also from China. And basically, anyway, she came over to America when she was 18 years old. She was the youngest of, I believe, 7 children. I think one of them may have been adopted. And I'll tell her story in a different video. But anyway, she came to USC to study, met my dad at the Christian Crew organization there. And here we are today. They had me about when they were 30 years old, so they were married about 7 years before me, and I was born in West Covina, California, and now I live in Chino Hills. So kind of a boring introduction, I guess, or maybe not. Depends who's watching. But it's cool coming from a mixed background. I kind of get I often got, and I still do, get exposed to both kind of the white American culture and the Chinese/Singaporean culture. Or maybe I should just say Singaporean, although Singapore is such a mixed place that it's similar to America in a way, where it's just a lot of mixed ethnicities there. Let's talk about my first memory. That'll be interesting. So my first memory was in my first house, I guess, which is actually very near where I am right now, literally 1 minute walking distance. It's I can actually see the house that is in front of it, so it's over there. But I was floating down the upstairs hallway. So at this point in time, I don't have a body, basically. I can't see my arms or legs. All I see is maybe the point of view of a floating spirit or bird, bird's point of view, I guess you could say. Um, and then basically at the end of the hallway is the door that goes to my room. The door opens, I go inside the room, and then there's a bright flash of light and inside of my room, and then I kind of move, into the light towards my crib. So the crib is where I'm sleeping. This is when I'm about 2 years old. I'm still sleeping in the crib, and I can see myself inside of the crib. So again, I'm in some kind of this bodiless form, and I'm looking down on my 2-year-old baby body. Okay, and that goes on for about a second or so, however long, it's, and to some extent, it becomes bright again, and assumably I enter the body. At least that's how I interpret it. That's just really all that happened. Is I went into my room, saw myself in a crib, and that's all really what happened. And then there were some bright flashes. But as in dreams, you connect things together, and that's basically the narrative. So right after that, my next memory would have been my third birthday party, and my parents would have celebrated my birthday multiple times, but the one I do remember is the one in my Aunt Angela's house. I call her Ii, and my uncle, her husband, is Ation, which is, I believe, either Teochew dialect. Ii is, it means first aunt in Chinese, but she's actually my third aunt, which is Sam Yi, but that was hard for me to say when I was a kid, apparently, so I said Yi, and now I still call her that. So I grew up, just down the street, here in Chino Hills. I went to the preschool, again, down the street. I went to a couple different summer daycares. This Christian, actually, I believe it's a Christian preschool down the street here. I had a good time. I met my first best friend. Her name was Melissa, and she was fun. We would go to Chuck E. Cheese together. My parents would obviously bring us there. Our parents, were friends, and through the preschool, and then we would go to Disneyland. My EE would take me to Disneyland every week. So she had an annual pass for me, and we literally would go there for lunch or something. I mean, it was ridiculous. I'm pretty sure there were some weeks where we went 2 or 3 times, maybe more. Probably 3 is the max, but I mean, she would spoil me, and it was great. I loved it. So I mean, we had a lot of nice memories together, or nice moments together. And I don't really remember most of it, but I can assume. I mean, what I do remember is very, very good. So, and I had a nanny named Grace, and she was extremely kind and loving. Hispanic mother of again maybe 5 children, or I don't know the exact number, but she had quite a few children, and they they knew me too, and they're all about 10 years older than me or so, and the oldest one's probably in his mid-30s. I'm 20. How old am I? I'm 24 right now. 1994. I'm 24. I forget my age because I went to. I feel like I'm getting old. So after that, I am getting more comfortable though in front of the camera. I just have to, keep it up. So after that, my grandparents. So during that time period, this is the time period before I moved to Singapore, which is what happened when I was 4 years old. So this is all pre 4 years old. So my grandparents would come to visit a lot. My grandparents were absolutely amazing. My grandmother was so loving, very sweet. This is on my dad's side, right? My mom's mother, she didn't. So last time she came to America, I believe may have been before I was born, but I'd have to confirm that with my parents. But somewhere around that time, and my dad took her to Disneyland or something like that. But and then she rode the Thunderbird Mountain roller coaster, which is crazy. So she doesn't even speak Mandarin Chinese. She speaks her dialect from it's somewhere in the Guangdong province or Guangzhou province. I forgot what it's called, but that area, kind of in this southern midsection part of China, I guess. I'm not really sure, but so yeah, so she didn't come to. I didn't see her as a kid until I went to Singapore. By the way, the first time I traveled was when I was about 6 months old, which was to Singapore. So I didn't meet her before I was like a year old. I just don't remember. So my first time really remembering her was when I went to Singapore when I was 4 years old, and we went there because of my dad's work. Backtrack to my grandparents. My grandmother loved to make puzzles, and she would make puzzles with me. And there was one with like a whale, probably from SeaWorld or something. And then she would have, at her home in New Jersey, she would have like giant puzzle paintings, I guess. Like she would glue the puzzle pieces together and then display them all over her house. And there were these, they were all like beautiful pictures of like from her travels. So then, yeah, I went to Singapore. My dad started working there, and then I went to this. I went to kindergarten there, in kindergarten and first grade. This school, it's called the Singapore American School, SAS, and I mean it is gigantic. It is about 30 acres. Okay, I don't know how I remember that, but it's 32 acres, 29 acres, somewhere around there, and it's huge. It's a kindergarten or preschool up to high school. So, 4 to 18 years old, something like that. Kindergarten to 12th grade. My dad's work paid for it. It was about 30,000 US dollars. US Sing dollars about the same, but somewhere around there per year, I believe. This is kindergarten, right? So, but I mean, we had like an Olympic-sized pool. All the classes would share it, but I mean, they had multiple of these pools for different grades, I guess, something like that. We would have like computer labs, gymnastics class. We would have gym class. It was just so fun, and I remember this one game that I played where I would play a tank, and the games back then were like, they were all in 2D, like it was just flat. So like the tank was like green lines that was like kind of in the shape of a tank, and it moved, and then you saw like little targets in the battlefield, I guess, that was all drawn with green lines, and you would try to attack them, right? And then I had a speech therapist because that was provided by the school, I guess, and I would go there, one-on-one private meeting. I'd leave the classroom maybe during nap time or something, and we would work on my tongue strength, I guess, because I couldn't say certain words. My pronunciation sometimes is still bad. I don't know, but I mean, I couldn't say some words back then, so I had to develop my tongue muscles, and that was at the school. And obviously sports. There were soccer fields, and by the way, during this time period was when I first started playing soccer. That was in first grade, so it was the next year, but that would eventually become about a 7 or 8 year streak of me playing soccer every year, basically. And so the other thing that was notable was the assembly room. So normally all the kids gather together and sit on the floor too, right in the assembly room. All the kids were sitting on the floor crisscross-legged style, listening to whatever, the speaker, the show, whatever was going on. But we had like movie theater style seats for the 5-year-olds. So, it would be a chair, like a movie theater, you fold down the chair you can sit in, and it was like a theater, And then there was a stage and stuff like that. So, I mean, it was nice. Food was good. We had uniforms on Fridays, I think. And all good except, and then I remember the other thing was so funny. It was in the playground. And I just talked about this because, I did most of my schooling in America. It was just this time where, like, in the playground, they would use a bell, a literal bell, to call us back to our classrooms after recess. And our teacher would ding, 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 shake the bell like, hey, it's time to go back to class, as opposed to a speaker that just went, to tell, hey, like, the next session is, So that just always amused me when I was a kid, that back in Singapore we used a real bell to ring the kids back in. There's one guy named Mayink, and I remember I would pretend to like teach him how to fight or something, but like we didn't. I mean, I don't know. We would just joke around. That was probably in first grade after I got like a Game Boy. All the kids had Game Boy Colors, and I asked my parents for one, and I actually got one. I got it on some visit back to America, though. I remember opening up the box in America and playing in Pokemon Blue version, I believe, was my first game ever on the Game Boy. My actual first game ever, I'm gonna skip back to my 3 to 4-year-old time period, was Crash Bandicoot, and I have to talk about Crash Bandicoot because I absolutely loved it. And Crash Bandicoot was like my life. I would just play Crash Bandicoot. Like, you just gotta try it. And my mom or my E would just like feed me dinner while I played Crash Bandicoot. I mean, that was my distraction, or like that was their way of getting me to do something. And I don't know. You know how it is when you want your kid to give your kid something to do. And I mean, it was stimulating. It taught me patience. This is funny because it's some people are going, it's a game, but like, if you're not patient, you're gonna die, like, in that game, So, it was just, and I would ask my E and Ation for help a lot, and it was so funny. Like, when I would leave after dinner and go back home, we would have dinner at her house. I would ask them like, hey, please help me finish that level. And because I wasn't good enough to beat the levels back then, and it was great. And that was so they bought that PlayStation 1 It wasn't mine, it was theirs, but I pretty much was the only one that used it. And then Crash Bandicoot 2, 3, 4. That was 4 was CTR, Crash Team Racing, and that was amazing, just car racing. So I'm gonna skip back. So this is kind of maybe one of the final stories, since like I'm starting to get a little tired from recording, but I'm kind of on a roll. So this is the bus lady story. That's what I'm calling it, the bus lady story. So the bus lady story. I took the bus every day to school and kindergarten. This is in Singapore. And basically, there was a Malay lady, I believe she was Malay, and she was, from what my mom said, I didn't notice, but she was somewhat maybe disabled in one of her legs or something. I don't know what was wrong, but she didn't have a good mood. She was, I don't know what was up with her, but the main thing, this is all stuff I'm saying, after the fact when I'm older. But as a 5-year-old, here I am taking the bus home. This was on the way home. This lady would come up to me almost every day, and she would take a thumbtack needle and like poke me. Okay. Just a little, it hurt, but there was never really bleeding, okay? Except for one time. She did it pretty hard. And by the way, I went home and told my mom, like, hey, this lady's poking me. But she thought poking meant, like, with the finger, and she thought I was cute or something, and, like, was poking me, right? So I didn't, she didn't do anything. But then when I came home and my hand was in pain, and there was like a huge mark on my hand, which that mark lasted a couple years. So she basically kind of scarred me for a while. I don't know where it is now, but that was evidence when we went back and was like, hey, you did this to me. And she kind of denied it, like she was saying I was the one who wasn't careful with the thumbtack needle. And while we were there, some kids started to come onto the bus. We were the first one on the bus, and then we asked the other children, and they were like, "Yeah, she does do that to James sometimes. She takes she only did it to me. Okay, people would see that she would come with this little thumbtack needle and give me a little jab." You know what I mean? And of course, they didn't really know why she was doing it. They're all kids too, and still to this day we don't know. My mom has theories like, hey, maybe she was like jealous, or like, why me? I don't know, right? I didn't do anything to her. I'm the kind of guy that minds my own business, and I just don't know why she decided I was the kid that got the thumbtack needle. So she got fired. We took this up with the principal, and the next lady that came on, she handed out candy every day to all the kids. She would come with a basket of candy, and small candy, maybe like a Starburst or like a Mentos or something, and she would pass it out. And she was the replacement because I got the other lady fired. So that's a good ending. And that was my second experience kind of with abuse in a way. My first was actually this little guy. That's probably the last. I'm going to make this 30 minutes. So in preschool, I was friends with this girl, Melissa, right? And this guy named Anthony. I'm 3 years old here. Anthony, he wanted Melissa. Like, that's just what it was. Like, every time I was with Melissa on the playground, this guy would try to like take her. Like, I don't know. He would just chase us around. And he didn't like me. And one time, he put my head against a brick wall, okay? And then punched me in the face. And man, I cannot believe that. So yeah, he punched me in the face. And I don't know for sure, but it's probably because of that girl. And there was some other kid that bit me, but he was kind of weird. He would go around singing the Titanic song because that's about about the time that movie came out. And for some reason, he decided to bite my arm, and it had like marks on it for like a day. But he was cool. He was just, when you're kids, you don't really know. But that one kid that punched me, he knew what he was doing. No, I don't know. But so that's kind of going to be my first little episode of childhood and kind of introduction, maybe why I'm doing this. And hopefully, who knows, I might come back in 10 minutes and do another segment. But I just want to kind of end that little early childhood segment.